One of the major conspiracies involving the attacks of September 11, 2001 is the pre-intelligence operations run by the CIA. And for those who follow me on this channel, know I extensively cover pre-intelligence operations from the CIA, the NSA, the Israelis, and Saudi GID in regards to what they collected and what they may have collected regarding the hijackers' involvement with the 9/11 attacks later on. And one issue I want to talk about today is something that's not talked about on the truther side or even brought up on the debunker side. There's a reason why I don't consider myself a truther or a debunker. I'm a data analyst of information. So I want to talk to you today about the Bin Laden Issue Station, which is codename Alex Station. And from 1999 to 2002, it was run. The chief of station was Richard Blee. He took over the job from Michael Scheuer. The CIA replaced Scheuer with Richard Blee. And Richard Blee worked with Scheuer's help. And one of them was an analyst named Michelle Ann Casey. You'll also see her name slightly changed to Michael Ann Casey to hide the true identity. It was Michelle Ann Casey. She was considered the lead analyst in regards to the operations of the Yemen Hub in Sana'a, Yemen. Now, for those who don't know, the Yemen Hub was an actual building owned by a man named Ahmed al-Hada, who was an associate of Osama bin Laden from his days in Afghanistan. And this house would later receive information from all around the world from Al Qaeda operatives and affiliates to pass on information to whoever in Al Qaeda. For example, if there was an Al Qaeda operative or an affiliate located in Syria or Jordan or Egypt, where the calls are monitored by the state security services, they would speak in code or they would pass a message over to Ahmed al Hada or whoever was at the house at the time. And those codes and messages would basically be passed on to the recipient of the information, whether it be Osama bin Laden, Dr. Ayman al Zawahiri, the military commander of Al Qaeda at the time, Mohammed Atef, or anybody else within the organization all around the world. So this house became the primary nexus and the most surveilled house in the world at that time from 1996 to 2002. So you can only imagine the amount of data that the NSA collected because they were monitoring the phone lines, the incoming and outgoing calls. The CIA had placed a listening device inside the house, and they can only listen to the people that were talking on the phone outgoing or listening to the people inside the house. Imagine the information they've came across. I don't know because all of this is classified. It's not made public. And for the likes of me, I don't know how anyone has not filed the Freedom of Information request regarding the release of these transcripts. Now, of course, we have the trial in Guantanamo that hasn't started. Maybe that information is going to be used as evidence. I don't know. But I would like to work with somebody like Jason Leopold or maybe some lawyers that might be involved in trying to get these transcripts released at a later date. But the lead for this investigation was Michelle Ann Casey, and you had Richard Blee overseeing the operation. Now, it's been alleged that the CIA had information which could have prevented 9/11 attacks if this information was acted on. Now, I'm not talking about specific information regarding the attacks, but information about two hijackers, Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi, who were living inside the United States unbeknownst to the FBI and Department of State because the CIA and the NSA had not passed this information. The FBI working in the Bin Laden Issue Station did receive this information, but they couldn't release the information because the CIA threatened them not to release the information because it's CIA information and the FBI could get in big trouble. People like Mark Rossini and Doug Miller and the rest who basically worked at the station. There was a couple more. But as you could see, why? Why would this information not be passed? It's because, as we later would find out, that the CIA was running an illegal covert operation inside the United States and monitoring Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi using Saudi intelligence So, in other words, the CIA could have gotten in big trouble had this broken out. And people like George Tenet, the DCI, maybe James Pavitt, the director of operations, would be fired from their jobs and disgraced. Now, imagine them finding out there was a foreign entity inside the United States who's considered an ally. Oh, my goodness. How about that? Well, what I want to read you today is a conspiracy that is not known to many people. And I brought it up sometimes, but I really want to highlight it here today for you to basically pass it on to other people in the hopes of maybe, just maybe, this could be used to release new information or to hold certain people accountable. Isn't that what we're all in this for, right? We're not in this for shits and giggles or, for money to be spent in Aruba like some truthers, alleged self experts. But I digress. Now, the information related to Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi from the CIA was not passed to the FBI. After the 9/11 attacks, the 9/11 Commission and the Joint House Inquiry started their investigations. The CIA decided that the chief of station, who actually gave the order not to release information, as well as the Bin Laden Issue Station's deputy director, Tom Wilshire, should have been central to this investigation. Now, Wilshire was questioned by the Joint Inquiry. But what about Richard Blee? And what about the lead analyst in charge of the Yemen Hub, Michelle Ann Casey? Because the Yemen Hub is the primary nexus of 9/11. Nobody talks about it. You talk about Building 7, you talk about drone airliners. Here you have the most surveilled house in the world. How on earth was information not shared which could have prevented 9/11? This is the biggest conspiracy of all. Well, let me read you a book by Gary Bernstein. Gary Bernstein is a legendary CIA field officer. He was in charge of Hank Crumpton's operation, Hank Crumpton being the CIA's, I believe he was head of the Special Activities Division. And he actually penned Gary Bernstein to be in charge of an operation called Operation Jawbreaker, which was the hunt for Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda and the Taliban in Afghanistan. And under Gary Burns, it was headed by Gary Schroen at first. Gary Schroen, another legendary field officer. And Schroen couldn't get the Afghan tribes to get together and work together and to fight against Al Qaeda and the Taliban in Afghanistan in October, November, December 2001. Bernstein comes in and gets a lot of coordination, a lot of, tens of millions of dollars passed on to these Afghan warlords, and they started making real progress in killing a lot of Al Qaeda and Taliban operatives in these cities held by the Taliban, who was at war with the Northern Lions, the Uzbeks, the Tajiks, these Afghan clans that were fighting against the Taliban and Al Qaeda for control of the country. And what happened was, after 9/11, when bin Laden is surrounded by the CIA and the Afghans and the Tajiks and the other Afghan tribes and Special Activities Division armies and Green Berets, they had bin Laden surrounded between the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan. But what they didn't have was the back channel into Pakistan covered. And Bernstein required 200 men, just 200 men from the State Department. But no, it was denied, and bin Laden escapes. But before that even happened, Bernstein surrounds bin Laden, and he gets a call from Hank Crumpton, his boss. Hank Crumpton says, "We're replacing you." And who did they replace Gary Bernstein with? Richard Blee. The same Richard Blee who was the chief of station of the Bin Laden issue station, and his analyst, Michelle Ann Casey, the lead analyst for the Yemen Hub. Why? Well, according to Gary Bernstein, this is what he wrote in his book, Jawbreaker. Now, I'm going to make myself disappear so we can read this together. His men were familiar with Blee, and they were resolute in their response. No disrespect to Rich, but when you leave, we leave. Bernstein came to believe the move to name Blee as Afghanistan's station chief at the time was political, attributing it to Blee's closeness to George Tenet and his spies division director, James Pavitt. the same James Pavitt who's head of the director of operations at the CIA. Some have more deeply questioned the motivations behind this ill-timed rotation. Now, remember, they have bin Laden surrounded. The intelligence committees of Congress were gearing up to begin their official investigation into 9/11 matters the following month. As Blee arrived in Afghanistan to take over for Bernstein, he also brought with him the young staff operations officer from Malik Station, Michelle Ann Casey. As you can see, it's Michael Ann Casey. Mark Rossini, who I've interviewed, was one of the FBI agents who read the cable about al-Midar and al-Hazmi inside the United States with dual entry visas, U.S. visas, and tried to warn the United States and got in trouble, told not to. He was threatened by the CIA, threatened by CIA lawyers. Mark Rossini, in my view, is a whistleblower, and he's a hurt man because of it, because 9/11 attacks happened, and he tried to warn the FBI about what was going on. But if he did that, he would have been arrested. He would have been punished and definitely jailed for sharing CIA information that was not supposed to be not to be shared. Mark Rossini asserts his belief that Blee took Casey along to hide her from the coming congressional investigation. They obstructed justice by pushing her away, he says. The Public Affairs Office at CIA later issued an email in 2011 calling this claim absurd. Rossini counters, how could you hide government employees? It seems absurd. The fact that she was placed physically far away and made it very inconvenient for investigators to talk to her. Was Rossini's speculation right? And if so, had Blee been sent to Kabul for the same reason? Now, we could basically say that Bernstein could be making this up, that Mark Rossini could be making this up. The document I'm going to show you next shows that it wasn't made up. And it's a document that was ignored by the legacy media for obvious reasons, and alt media for reasons I don't understand. Big alt media platforms did not cover this. And what I'm about to show you blows the lid off the CIA's claim that this is absurd. This is coming from the Donald Canestraro document. CS3 stated that sometime after the events of 9/11, he was in a staff meeting with several high-level FBI and CIA officials regarding terrorism. CS3 stated that he or she, because Canestraro had to hide the identity because they're looking at classified information. CS3 stated that he overheard one CIA official, Director of Operations James Pavitt, telling the CIA Director George Tenet that he was glad we kept CIA analyst VVV from 9/11 Commission investigators. The CIA analyst is Michelle Ann Casey, VVV. CS3 recalled that Tenet acknowledged Pavitt's statement and confirmed that keeping VVV, Michelle Ann Casey, from the 9/11 Commission was a good idea. Here you have a director. Here you have a director and the director of operations knowingly interfering with a congressional investigation with the September 11 attacks. Why isn't anyone talking about this? Why? Do the 9/11 victims' families' law firms know about this? I'm pretty sure. But if not, this needs to be told. This needs to be illuminated, don't you think? CS3 recalled that Tenet acknowledged Pavitt's statement, confirmed that keeping Michelle Ann Casey from the 9/11 Commission was a good idea. A director of the CIA saying this. CS3 stated that the conversation indicated that two CIA officials had conspired to obstruct the 9/11 Commission by keeping Michelle Ann Casey hidden from 9/11 Commission officials. CS3 stated that CIA officials claimed to 9/11 Commission officials that Michelle Ann Casey was serving in Italy, but in reality, she was in Afghanistan. And there you have it. One of the biggest conspiracies involving pre-9/11 and after 9/11 regarding the obstruction of justice by the CIA in the 9/11 Commission investigation. Why did Tenet get the Presidential Medal of Freedom then? Because at the time it was not known. But now we know that the CIA withheld information from the FBI, from the State Department, and also obstructed justice regarding the 9/11 Commission's investigation into the attacks. The attacks, which could have been prevented, had information been acted on and shared with the FBI and State Department and the National Security Council and the principals. The CIA lied. Flat out. Where are you, Jimmy Dore? Where are you, CNN? Where are you, Tucker Carlson? Where are you, CBS, ABC? Where the fuck are you? You're supposed to be the defenders of civil liberties, the defenders of the right to free speech, the defenders of justice. Stop talking about World Trade Center 7. Not that it's not important, but here we have, and we could hold these people feet to the fucking fire, don't you think? Or maybe you're all talk and no action. I'm a small guy. I don't have the weight or the popularity to reach millions of people. But if somebody wants to take this information and share it, if they don't want to interview me because I'm a small guy, that's fine. Do that. I'm not in this for the popularity. I'm in this to get justice for these people and to hold people accountable. Are you? All right, guys. Thank you for tuning into this video. Have a great day, everybody, and stay safe.